Luis Suarez and company not grounded yet. The NWSL salary cap getting in the way of Alyssa Thompson staying stateside. And we talked to a leader, a representative of Sporting Cascades after we maybe didn't say the nicest things about their new brand. That and more coming up on Friday's Morning Kick Around. Hello and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kick Around, the show where we cover the world's favorite game from the United States of America, about United States of America soccer, coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. My name's Robert Kerr. I'm the media director of my local soccer club, and he's one of the leading voices of American soccer. Mr. Jason Davis, what up?
You said it, not me. I'm not putting myself on that level. I'm not claiming any of that, Rob. I'm just a guy who likes soccer, who gets to talk about it for my living. That's all I'm claiming right now. But this is going to be a good show today. It's Friday. We made it. We're here. This is the Friday before we go to Albuquerque next week for the big match. Meow Wolf Night on Saturday, September 13th. We'll be there for New Mexico United versus FC Tulsa. We'll be there documenting the crowd and the vibe. We're going to talk to the owner of New Mexico United. Man, I'm a little all over the place, Rob. There's a lot to do and not a lot of time to do it in, but yeah, let's go. I'm ready.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the much anticipated on the edge of the seat action that will be USA versus South Korea friendly over the weekend. I'm sure.
Oh, we're talking about that today. Yeah, we're gonna get that into.
Yep. If you're watching this, haven't hit subscribe yet, do so. Please hit subscribe. Doesn't cost you a thing. Helps us out tremendously. Become an MK Ultra. Become a member of the channel, or you can hit super thanks at any time during the live show. And if you are an MK Ultra, a member of the channel, you can get priority commenting on these videos, access to the Discord server, amongst many other perks. You can also help out on ko-fi.com/morningkickaround. We got some fundraising goals there, and you can find us on social media or write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. But we have a lot to get to. So let's start off Friday's show with today's long balls. Welcome on in. This is Long Balls here on Morning Kick Around, Friday, September 5th. 5 or 6 days since the crimes committed after the final whistle of Seattle versus Inter Miami. And no players in pink have been grounded yet. MLS mums the word as of showtime here at 9:30 Eastern on Friday. You got the finger of wisdom in the air. What's up?
Well, I just thought you want to jump in here. I want to be fair to Major League Soccer. I'm going to hit refresh on my inbox right now, Rob, to see if something has landed since we started the show. If maybe there's been a decision made about Luis Suarez, who obviously is the biggest offender here, but also Sergio Busquets, who slapped Obed Vargas, also Maximiliano Falcon, who put a player in a headlock. You know, we got that stuff going on. Let me refresh. Let me see. Nope, nothing. Nope. MLS has done nothing right now so far. And remember, this is not an MLS game. It's not exactly the league. It's a side thing. It's run with Liga MX. Obviously, you know, it's not exactly the same as regular season, but come on. We talked about it with the CBA covering this kind of thing. It certainly is within the rights of Major League Soccer to bring a hammer down on Luis Suarez in particular, but potentially banning Busquets, Falcon, others involved in the melee there at Lumen Field on Sunday night. They have the power. The question is, will they use it? And I definitely think there is a danger here of Major League Soccer really hurting its brand if it doesn't take a stand on this. There have been, since you and I talked last time, and this is now out there around the internet, there have been statements made by Luis Suarez on his Instagram page and by Inter Miami, believe via their website. Now, the Inter Miami statement is barely that. It is Nothing. I will read it to you because that's how short it is. It won't take up too much of our time.
Mhm.
Inter Miami condemns the altercations that took place following the conclusion of the Leagues Cup final. These actions do not reflect the values of our sport, and we remain committed to upholding the highest standards of sportsmanship both on and off the pitch. We are working closely with Leagues Cup and MLS officials to ensure the situation is addressed appropriately. We thank our fans and community for their continued support. I will point out, and this is not something, this is not original to me. Certainly saw it, other people say this. If you sign Luis Suarez, how can you claim to be holding up the highest levels of integrity and sportsmanship in the game?
Hey, man, it had been like 8 years since he bit someone, so that's,
It's like
step in the right
hiring.
direction.
It's like saying we are committed to financial integrity and hiring Bernie Madoff. Like, come on,
Oof.
guys. Like, what are you doing here? We know that you chose to make a deal with the devil. Everybody knew who Luis Suarez was. I don't know that it was necessarily a ticking time bomb, but I don't think anybody is shocked by this. Nobody saw what happened on Sunday and went, "Oh man, I can't believe Luis Suarez would do such a thing." We all went, "Oh yeah, that's who that guy is."
He did the thing. He finally did it. I thought he might make it through his
No,
MLS stint without something like this, but no.
I always mention this. This is one of my touch points for sort of like how he's perceived. My wife does not know much about soccer. She knows a little bit. She knows who some people are. Now, Lionel Messi, you would think, okay, she knows who Lionel Messi is. He's the best player in the world. He's the best player of his generation, maybe the best player of all time. My kid talks about Lionel Messi occasionally. But I said to her, today we talked about Luis Suarez. She goes, the biting guy? And I said, exactly. That's exactly the biting guy. My wife, who does not otherwise care at all about soccer, said the biting guy when I said Luis Suarez. She knows exactly who that is.
So Luis Suarez is in the global zeitgeist as the biting guy, and that's unfortunate. I've enjoyed Luis Suarez goal scoring prowess and ability. He's wowed us on the field and has presented some of the most exciting soccer moments and goals in the last like 15 or so years. But biting people is going to be his lasting legacy. He could be in like the top 3, top 5, highest status players in the whole world if it wasn't for, spitting and biting and other just, unseemly and unsportsmanlike behavior. And it's really a shame. Like, it wasn't like, hey, do you remember when he, tied the Golden Boot, record, in multiple countries, and he scored 59 goals for Barcelona in a season, and he was famously got the red card for handballing and got away with it. But like at that last point, he is known for the darker arts rather than his, great contributions on the field during the, action in hand. And my son couldn't believe it when I told him one of these incidents happened in the World Cup. And he was like, didn't he know anyone was going to happen? I say this with all due respect. He is a competitive spaz who can't control themselves when things are going the wrong way, it seems. And he gets frustrated and it's kind of crazy ball of rage. And he does these things that kind of undermines his status as a player. But part of this story is also the delay in this, because there's other events which you'd say are much more trivial. A player for Charlotte FC at the weekend scored and in a celebration to the twerk dance, and it didn't take more than 2 days for Major League Soccer to come down with a disciplinary action. The committee for discipline from MLS.
Well, that's such a tribute thing too. So he did that celebration that was created by Lola Bonta. I think she plays for Kansas City, right? And famously did the same thing. Like, I pulled my hamstring. Nope, I twerked. And I don't know that those things are necessarily like. There was also what happened in the NFL game last night. So the Cowboys and the Eagles are playing the opener of the NFL season, and Jalen Carter gets ejected for spitting at Dak Prescott. And there's actually now, I guess, some like review of the incident. And Dak Prescott may have actually spit sort of in the direction of people as well, but he's like, I just spit all the time. That's what I do. I'm an athlete. I just spit. We got to be spitting. And so Jalen Carter gets ejected, and immediately the internet blew up with, see, this is what you can do if you actually care. If you actually, do the right thing, you can eject a player for spitting. Now, of course, Luis Suarez did what he did after the final whistle. not within the
Yeah.
bounds of the game. Everybody got red cards. Like, everybody got red carded from that. It's just a question of, again, the competition that is outside the bounds of typical MLS disciplinary committee action. What will the league do? It's not really up to the disciplinary committee of Major League Soccer, who are the ones that issue that fine to the Charlotte player. It is up to Don Garber as the commissioner, as the guy who sort of oversees the general well-being of Major League Soccer, who within the CBA could act to ban Luis Suarez and anybody else involved in the melee at Lumen.
So just before we move on, you want to hit refresh on that email inbox one more time, see if the status has changed, because this is notable. Like you said, credibility is on the line. And then if they don't do any punishments, like obviously this bad behavior has been growing and growing with kind of lack of repercussions for bad incidents. Obviously, this is the worst transgression. And if it goes unpunished, how bad will the behavior be the rest of the way during this Inter Miami era?
We made a statement on when we covered this on Wednesday, because we didn't do a show on Monday right afterwards. But when we talked about this, I actually may have said this. I'm sorry. I may have said this on the Best Soccer Show on Wednesday night. So my apologies for getting my streams crossed. But I do think there's an interesting angle here with the CBA, and not the CBA, but the Players Union. Now, you would not think it would be wise for the Players Union to go to bat for Luis Suarez if Major League Soccer drops the ban hammer on him for what happened in Seattle in the Leagues Cup. But that's kind of what the union's job is right now. They will be in a difficult position, the union, but that's the job, right? Like, if Luis Suarez is a member of the Players Union and Major League Soccer says you're banned from Major League Soccer, or we're kicking you out of the league, or you can't play the rest of the season, the Players Union kind of has to go to the defense of Suarez. As a member, he has that privilege. And they also will want to be sure of kind of protecting the rest of their constituency from potential serious punishment. Again, sort of where is the line, figuring that out. That will be difficult. Now, again, you could say that won't make the union look good, but don't be surprised if the union takes some action, if indeed Major League Soccer comes down hard on Luis Suarez.
Moving on to long ball number 2, our second note of the morning here on Friday. This is credit in large part to the commenters and the MK Ultras in the Discord. But on Wednesday, we did a story on Collin County, Texas, announcing that they're starting a new pro soccer team next year, 2026, it says, kicking off in March 2026. Lots of folks in the area had no clue what this was. So some internet sleuthing went down, and there might be a couple threads to pull out to get some clues on to what's going on with this Collin County pro side.
Yeah, it looks like, and people are very quick to say, is this Texoma FC relocating? Now, I'll put up a map here to give you a sense of what the region looks like. Okay, so you can see, I don't have them circled, but you can see Princeton right there, sort of middle, bottom half, right in the middle. It says Princeton. That's very close to McKinney. And we were speculating about what McKinney's role might be in this, because there is the McKinney Chupacabras of USL League 2 who have drawn significant crowds. We talked to Michael Hitchcock about his efforts to launch these teams. By the way, not everybody's on board with what Hitch is doing with those clubs, that this is about, making money. It's not actually good for the sport, but that's maybe a different debate for a different day. But it seems that rather than McKinney and Chupacabras have anything to do with this, even though McKinney and Princeton are very close, the Texoma FC USL League 1 entry, which plays in Sherman, which is up north, you can see almost directly north from McKinney, that club may be moving down south because they have the third lowest average attendance in USL League 1. Their venue is less than ideal. And even though it looks like they were trying to raise money through new investment as recently as May, there are very serious financial concerns and posts around Reddit and things like that about the potential of this team moving on and moving down south in order to stay alive. And I think it absolutely is a clue, Rob, that it says coming in 2026, because who can stand up a professional soccer club from scratch in 6 months time? Like, that's not a thing. So if they're saying they're going to be playing in 2026 and they're saying they're going to be pro, it just makes sense that this would be Texoma FC making a move south, which opens up a whole nother question about whether Texoma should have been granted a franchise to begin with, and whether or not relocation is something we can stomach or we like. Okay, and Matt is now saying that it's not. Wow, this is a new wrinkle. I did not realize that. Texoma FC put out a statement yesterday saying that it's not them. That is development here, because we had all this information that said it was probably going to be them. But if they put out a statement denying this, Rob, do we believe them?
Yeah, this confuses the situation a little bit, because multiple people had written to us saying that they signed up for the newsletter on that Collins County post that led them to a mailing address that looked like the Texoma club address. So people were drawing a line between the two there, but Matt Prater throwing a wrinkle in the mix. So I guess it's all very speculative right now. And I saw the Third Degree I think it's podcast or platform.
Yeah.
They're very close to FC Dallas and follow them very closely, and they were taken off guard. They're like, what is going on here? So, and in there's also been posts made and retracted. So there's a lot of murkiness here.
Okay. So what Matt is saying, following up, thank you, Matt, by the way, statement went out to all Texoma Youth Academy parents. So they did an internal statement to a subset of people who are involved directly with the Texoma Youth Academy there in North Texas. That's not the same as going public with that to everybody amidst this speculation. Hey, we're not moving. That is interesting. Now, I'm not questioning Matt, but I do wonder what that means. Like, or without having the text of the statement, is it possible that Texoma is telling, or the youth academy is saying, we're not going anywhere, but the professional club could be moving? And the distance is not so great, right? That you can't imagine there being some sort of, well, we're still running a youth academy in Sherman or in that part of Texas, but we're going to go play our games in Princeton because it gives us a better chance to draw a crowd. I mean, yeah, man, that is, this whole thing is a mess now. If it's not, and I don't want to be throwing out, well, it's definitely Texoma. Obviously, we don't know that it's definitely Texoma because there is no clear evidence that it's Texoma. But if they're putting out statements to their youth groups, their youth families, that they're not doing this, who is it? And how do they get how do they stand up a team in 6 months? And is this definitely USL League One? Because again, you could say, well, maybe it's an amateur team. It says pro soccer right there. It says pro. So what is that? I mean, again, we even speculated it could be a MLS Next Pro team, or I guess it could be technically a NISA team. NISA teams are pro in some regard. So what is going on here?
I think Chris in the comments has a decent point, possibly splitting the youth up from the pro team, a la Philly and YSC years ago. Yeah, I mean, the youth team's putting out that message saying like, hey, we're not going anywhere. Don't take away any of your payments to your youth club soccer. We're not moving away. Keep your kids here. And possibly the top level pro side doing their own thing and moving, possibly. A lot of speculation here, obviously. Mystery surrounding this Collin County pro team that's supposed to start in just a few months. But we're going to talk about this at the top of the hour with our guest, but it's going to come up there. But does the Texoma thing and the mystery surrounding this, does this lead to the question about USL and how discerning they are on the entry to their leagues?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is, there is something there. And I have a big appetite for just start something, try, because if you don't try, you don't know if it's going to work. And we're not in a place to be picky when it comes to American soccer. We certainly haven't been for a long time. But I do think there is a question about whether or not it's wise just to sort of set a bar and say, well, if you clear this bar financially, we'll give you a club, without sort of checking in and saying, well, is this the right place for us to put a club? Because I definitely think it is bad. I mean, I don't think I'm going on a limb here. I guess you could argue about how bad it is. I think it's bad when clubs die, right? That's a bad thing. In fact, to bring this kind of to bring that point to bear here, and even in Texas, although in a very different part of Texas, I was reading a newsletter about college sports yesterday. That's all about sort of the money in college sports and various things. And the reporter had gone down to the Rio Grande Valley I think way down deep South Texas.
Used to
where
be a
there was
USL team there, yeah.
There used to be a USL team. They built a stadium for that team. They died, and now a college football program is starting at Rio Grande Valley University. And he was writing about the potential success of this football program in that part of the country, in that part of Texas. And I was like, this is wild because that was a soccer venue. There was a soccer team there. The Toros played there, and now they're gone. And it's almost like, oh yeah, remember the Toros? Remember that they existed? Because that's how our brains are sort of calcified when we think about dead teams all the time. Like there are teams I haven't thought about in years, and that's sad, right? That they came and they went and they were like this blip. They just kind of happened, and I don't think that's good. I think it's a death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing. Like it's just erosion of the faith in the idea that we can build a fully built out, drop the pins on the map kind of situation. Dot the map has been a thing I've said, and it's been picked up, and I really do believe that. But you don't dot the map irresponsibly, Rob. You dot the map with clubs are going to stand at least a couple of years test of time. Like at least give us 5 or 6 or 8 years, and then you get a chance.
We want to dot the map with pen and not pencil, is what you're saying here, I think. And this wreaks havoc. It's kind of a reverse reappropriation.
Dud Soccer Club right here on my chest. Now, maybe that's because the MLS team came to town, but again, that's a problem too. Like, are we just going to push teams out of the way because somebody with $500 million comes in? I don't love that. As great as San Diego FC has been on the field and as fun as they've been, and I talked to Mikey Veras on the radio yesterday, and he's doing a great job. It still sucks that a club had to die so that one could live. And maybe you would argue, well, San Diego could have tried to make a go of it. I suppose that's true. But again, part of our issue is that American soccer is kind of only as strong as the appetite of people who have some money to keep going when there's a chance of significant losses. Not everybody is willing to stand again, these are not community clubs that have baked in support that goes back generations, and you can sort of count on something. When we talk about buying clubs in England, Americans buying clubs in England, little clubs that are value propositions, they're not doing that because, they love the game. They're doing that because they see potential growth because it's a baked-in fan base, and here it causes a problem. Now, Riverside Grove is saying something a lot of people will agree with. Without promotion, teams can't grow, and that increases the likelihood of death. We don't know until we try if that's the case. So that's where we are a lot. A lot of us are at this point with USL talking about pro-rel.
Interesting, the reverse reappropriation of soccer going to football in Rio Grande Valley there. It's been the other way, is soccer being played on American football fields has been typically the way to go. Long ball number 3 on Friday, as we want to do, the Fab Four games of the weekend here in North America, where we talk about what games might be worth some attention and carving out some of your weekend for. A little bit of a different weekend ahead of us with the international break. So there's a couple different games in the mix here, but this is obviously a group conversation, and the 4th pick of the Fab Four goes to the Chat and the MK Ultras. So get your suggestions in for the chat pick for the Fab Four this weekend. But Jason, let me give you the opportunity to pick numero uno for this weekend's Fab Four.
I will take the U.S. men's national team game in Harrison, New Jersey against South Korea. I will take that game. I think that general excitement around the U.S. men's national team is low. Like confidence really is low, pretty low right now. This group does not generate a ton of enthusiasm for various reasons, whether it be none of the key players seem to have contributed enough for this team to have a bunch of success under Mauricio Pochettino. Now he is starting to look, he's looking under couch cushions for players like, oh, there's a Sean Zawatsky. Let's grab him and see what he can do. Like, I didn't even know he was down there. And that does not have people thrilled, right? That we saw the reaction to Christian Roldan addition to the roster. Lots of people not on board with that.
Tell us about what people had to say about that addition.
Well, okay. I mean, I guess, I don't want to paint with a broad brush or say that every American soccer fan is the same. There are U.S. men's national team fans who are like, yeah, that's great. Christian Roldan deserves it based on how good he's been in Major League Soccer. Just helped Seattle win that League's Cup. He was excellent in that game, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of people are like that. And people are also rationally thinking, well, he's fairly close. He doesn't have to travel across the Atlantic Ocean. There's a pause here in the MLS moment. I don't know. Lots of people are like, okay, it just kind of makes sense that you would bring this guy in. But there are other people who think this is MLS DEI, Rob. That is a phrase I've seen on social media. That is a wild thing to bring. That I think you are yeah, you are extremely messy if you're thinking like, oh, I'm gonna use the phrase the acronym DEI to talk about MLS and MLS players making the national team. So that's one of the vibes around it, Rob. I do think there's an opportunity here to build some excitement. It's going to be tough, South Korea is a pretty decent team. We know they've got talent. They also are kind of trying to restart their situation. They've got some players in Europe, but I don't think that anybody thinks of South Korea as like dripping with talent. So there's something there. I have no idea what the lineup is going to look like. Thank you, Andy, for being pedantic. It's an initialism, not an acronym. That is true. Thank you, Andy. He's talking about DEI. I don't have any idea what the lineup's going to look like.
Yeah,
and that kind of makes it a little bit more intriguing for me.
Yeah, I didn't catch the Best Soccer Show this week. I believe you guys tried to predict the lineup on that. Did you try to predict the lineup on that show?
We did. Jared went with the 3-5-2, which, if you look at the roster, it kind of makes sense. You don't really have traditional fullbacks, at least not ones you trust. Like you feel like you have to get Dest on the field. You feel like you have to get, well, maybe you don't have to get Arston on the field, but I think it's pretty clear that Pochettino likes Max Arston a lot. And if you're not asking Max Arston to defend, he's a better fit. So do you have the center backs to make a 3-back system work? And then what does it look like ahead of that? I mean, is Balogun the guy or Sargent the guy because he's more of a back-to-goal player with Pulisic playing off him? Those are the things. I just because it's hard for me to necessarily well, it's not that it's hard to imagine. I just don't know. I think my default is he'll probably play a 4-3-3, and maybe it will play like a 3-5-2 in possession. But if he does that, is it Dest and Arston, or are you really losing a lot defensively?
With the pool of players available, I feel like this game or this window could be us looking back in a year and be like, remember this team? Who was that guy? It's a real mishmash of players, and probably one of the trickier rosters or squads to predict the 11. But moving on to the second pick of the weekend, I'm going to stay close to home. Detroit City FC versus Orange County. Both teams in the lower places of the playoff hunt in their respective conferences. So DCFC, there's been some changes going on there. They have dismissed their sporting director and one of their other main front office staff, and there's been a little bit of turbulence there, and they're on the cusp of the lower parts of the USL Championship. So we'll see how DCFC does against Orange County this weekend in the USL Championship. And on Friday, we like to bring in producer Jenny to chip in with her pick. And then before she goes, chat, throw in your Fab Four pick to be considered for the fourth pick in here. But go ahead, Jenny. What's the third selection for this weekend?
I'm kind of thinking along the same lines as you in the USL Championship playoff race. And I'm going to go with our friends at New Mexico United visiting San Antonio FC this weekend, 8:30 on Saturday. The entire USL Western Conference is a mess. New Mexico in 9th place right now on 27 points. It's just 5 points back of El Paso in 3rd with 32 and only 3 points back of San Antonio, who they're playing against this week. Both teams really need these points. Both teams are a lot of fun to watch. So I'd say check this one out, 8:30 on Saturday, as the USL really enters the business end of the season, and both conferences, but more so the West, are a real mess when you get into that kind of mid-table range fighting for those back-end playoff spots.
So USL action getting to the business end, and with the international break, makes sense to fill up our Fab Four with some USL games. Thank you, Jenny. And I think it speaks to the international weekend. Not a lot of suggestions from the MK Ultras. Not too many in the chat, but we have one, at least 4 NWSL games on national television. Looking forward to Bay versus KC, says Andy. That's a good suggestion for on national television. That's some good visibility for the women's game here in the United States. And we're going to talk about NWSL and the salary cap later on. So that's a good shout in the Discord channel, which you can get access to becoming a member. North Mississippi Soccer says in the USL, he would look at USL League One, Omaha versus Texoma. And so that's a good shout. And then go USA as well. So should we go with Andy's suggestion for the fourth pick of the group? Bay versus KC
Sure.
in the NWSL.
We'll make that the official pick, but I do want to point out Washington-Seattle is a pretty nice game, and that's on Sunday at Audi Field, so look out for that one as well.
So thank you for that. That is the Fab Four: USA, Korea, DCFC versus Orange County, San Antonio versus New Mexico, and what did you say for the fourth?
We'll go with Bay FC and Kansas City from Andy's suggestion.
All right, thank you guys. That wraps up our long balls, and before we get to our guest, I got to remind you guys, next weekend, we are going to be live on location in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Meow Wolf Night. Myself, Jason Davis, the owner of the club, representatives from Meow Wolf, and all the wonderful faces and costumes and all that. We're going to see that. We're going to present that out live. I think we're going to be on location. We'll do our show on Friday from out there. And then we will have a special presentation. We're going to say it's not going to be in the morning, so it's going to be a morning kick around at night on next Saturday, September 13th, morning kick around out at Meow Wolf Night. Can't wait to see and meet all the soccer people out in Albuquerque, New Mexico next weekend. Great stuff. Very excited for that big moment for morning kick around. All right. Our guest is waiting in the wings. We're going to talk about Sporting Cascades and get to know your district, Eugene, Oregon, here on Morning Kick Around. It's Get to Know Your District here on Morning Kick Around. I'm Robert Kerr. In the middle, Jason Davis. And on the far right of your screen, Dave Galas, co-founder of Sporting Cascades, brand new USL League One side based in Eugene, Oregon. One of 7 new teams coming into USL League One. And Dave is in here to discuss the new club and the soccer scene out in Eugene, Oregon, but also kind of provide a little bit of a rebuttal to our badge review from a couple weeks ago. Welcome onto the show. Thank you for taking time to join us here, Dave.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be on. Thanks, guys.
Is that what this is, Dave? Are you upset with us in any particular way?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
I'm not upset. I think you hit you made a lot of good points, and I just want to give a little clarity because I don't think you got the full picture. That's all.
No, and that's the thing. Like, here's obviously what our perspective is, a removed one, Dave. And I hope that we acknowledge that we're not in Eugene, we're not in Oregon, we're not your constituency. We're just a couple of guys. I've been doing this for a while, and I think I said this as well, and I'm sure you can appreciate this. It is impossible to make everybody happy when you do stuff like this. There is just absolutely no way to do that. So I'm going to pull up the badge. Since we made it about the badge, let's pull up the badge, and you can tell us like what led to these decisions. What is it that makes this perfect for your club and for Eugene?
Yeah. First of all, I think I'll echo your sentiment there. I'm not a huge fan of these explainers. You're trying to put too much into too few words, and it often just misses the general point. I think the most important thing is that, as you said, this really reflects our contingency. People have really responded to it well in our community. And, we did, I think all the things you were talking about of how we may have missed the mark and how we went about this, those are 100% things we did. I mean, we sat down, we had multiple listening groups. We took our fans out for beers. We asked them, don't design a crest. You're not here to design a crest, but tell us what you identify with as being part of this community. How do you want the team to represent you in the league? How do you want to be seen around the country? And there were a few things that were very important to pretty much everyone is, our natural surroundings are the things that they resonate with, that they want to be seen as being part of, that they're proud of. So we needed to bring that in. The other thing was there was a certain number of people who were saying, well, obviously it's Eugene, so the color is going to be green. And it was like, well, do you want it to be green? Well, not necessarily, but it has to be, right? I'm like, well, no, it doesn't have to be. We have the Timbers, of course, up the road who are predominantly green. We have the Oregon Ducks, who are obviously a big-time program here in town that we have to deal with for eyeballs and fan dollars, and they're green. And we have our minor league baseball team, Eugene Emeralds, and they're green. And then Boise launched, and obviously Boise wanted to not be blue and orange like their big university there in town, so they went green. So I think green was off the table for us. But we really leaned into, well, what are those natural colors that people identify with? And end of the day, as you said, we can't make everyone happy, but we did a lot of listening. We had a lot of input from people. And when we got the reactions from people, I think my favorite comment was one young woman said, "This badge is very Oregon." So it resonated, with our community as being very much where we are from.
I'm glad to hear that you've got some warm responses and people are identifying with this. They're locally in the area, which ultimately is what matters at the end of the day. So we have the badge here. Is there any clues as to when kits or bigger looks or more peeks behind the design process are coming out?
Yeah, I think, one of the challenges we face is being the last club out of the gate, so to speak, in terms of our launch. But I think it's also an advantage that we just get to pile event after event up until, we kick in March. So in a few weeks here, September 23rd, this is the exclusive preview that you're getting because no one's heard this date yet. September 23rd, we're doing an exclusive event here in Eugene. It's going to be signed up, limited number of people, and we're going to have a big announcement for who our apparel partner is. And we'll be launching our merch store on the next day. So if people are interested, they can sign up, they can come down, they can get that exclusive look at, our merch, our apparel partner, some of the kits that they've designed for other clubs, and sort of get the first view of things before we launch the online store the next day.
Dave, I want to ask about, about the origins of this and why Eugene is a good place for professional soccer. I mean, why you decided to do this. When we initially covered some of this and we talked about the badge, you had plenty of people, not plenty, a couple of people say, Lane United was a thing. Why isn't it just Lane United? But obviously that is the basis for this move. So can you give us some background on all of that?
Yeah. We started Lane United as the club that was going to move into Civic Stadium when the Eugene Emeralds moved out, and that was 15 years ago or something. Because the stadium was slated to be torn down, and it was, a real community asset. It was built the Public Works program in 1938. It was donated to the community, and there was a lot of community sentiment around saving that stadium. And I think a lot of people here in town realized that soccer was going to be the sport that could move in and save that stadium. So we, a bunch of people got together and we were able to raise $4 million in a matter of 6 months just from the community to buy that old stadium. Knowing that we had to have a team to play there, my brother John and I started Lane United, and it was very grassroots. It was, come up with a name, a crest, an idea, go down to a local pub, put up a banner and pass the hat, and people were responding. They're giving us $40 a pop to be a founding member to get this thing off the ground. And so it was a very grassroots movement, but then some owners said, oh, well, this seems to have legs. People care about this. So we got a little bit more money and we started in the PDL then, and we were ready to just make that jump right into USL Pro, is what it was called then. But 3 weeks after Eugene Civic Alliance, the organization that's able to buy the stadium, 3 weeks after we got the keys, 4 12-year-olds with matches burned it to the ground. So a little bit of a pivot for us.
So say it again. So the stadium burned to the ground. Is that what you just said?
Yep.
Oh,
45
Wow.
minutes. If go
Wow.
online and check it out. It is an amazing fire. It was a crushing, devastating day.
oh boy.
So we just kept going. We just kept like, well, we're not going to stop. Having this club that we built just as a grassroots PDL development team. So the league kept growing. The league kept getting better. We said in USL 2, like you said, it was a thing. But over the last 12 years of running that, I think it kind of it never moved beyond that sort of grassroots low level thing. And I think we really saw this as an opportunity to launch something new in the community and show that real difference between you can run a USL 2 club, at a low budget, and it can be a community thing and you get a few hundred fans and that's great. That doesn't work at USL 1. We need to sell a lot of tickets and big sponsors, and we're traveling nationwide and all that. So I think on a lot of levels, we just saw it as an opportunity to bring something new, to really show a lot of the more casual fans maybe that this is pro soccer in Eugene and it's different.
We've been talking on this show. We've been focusing a lot on the landscape and the growing landscape, and have highlighted that we're trying to dot the map with American soccer clubs, and with the history of clubs coming and going, we want to dot the map with marks of pen rather than pencil. And USL 1 is adding 7 new clubs to the D3 level next year. So some people are maybe a little nervous, like how many of the 7 are going to have long legs for this. What could you say about the onboarding process from USL to kind of like safeguard this, or make sure that the groups are stable enough to stand the test of time?
Yeah, great question. I think I sort of alluded to it a little bit in my previous response. The league has changed so much in the last 10 years. We've been running Lane United for 12 years now, and I've really seen it change. And I was actually in Tampa 2 days ago, getting the tour of HQ and sitting down with everyone there, and you just look at the office space and how much they've expanded, how much they've grown, how much the personnel has grown. And I will say over probably the last 10 or 5 years or so, they have hired some top people, and the support staff at the league is for real. I mean, there's some real pros there who know their stuff, and they're committed to every team. And so, I think it's a little bit cliche to just say, well, just lean on the league. They're there for you. But I think it's finally really, really true. And I think that the teams who, I hope all 7 of us and all 14 who exist are here for years. But I have a feeling that if there are teams that don't do well or struggle, we will find out later that they didn't lean into the league and that support system.
Yeah, so much of this seems to be just, doing the right things, taking the right steps. I mean, we talk a lot about the money involved in operating a club, and people go, oh, you got to pay your players. Well, yes, but also travel and all kinds of sundry things around that, Dave. And, I don't know if you want to give us numbers, but that obviously is a massive part of this. And so when you get investment, or when there's somebody who steps in as an owner to launch this club, what kind of commitment are we talking about here? I mean, there's franchise expansion fees and things like that for the league, but how much more does it cost to run a professional team than to maybe run Lane United?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually the easiest metric to use to show what a big gulf it is. I mean, we can run Lane United, on a shoestring budget. We're under $200,000 a year, and we're going to be $5 to $6 million this next year, and that's common. I mean, and to your point, Robert, the teams need long legs and they need to last. And if you want to do that, you got to lean into it, and you got to get people to your stadium, and that costs money. It's marketing dollars. It's all the other things you need to do. That game day experience. You cheap out on that stuff, and people aren't going to come back. So. And as you mentioned, Jason, it's travel. It's a big part of this. When you look at USL 1, and we're talking about, the good teams drawing 4,000 or 5,000, but we have a map that is the size of the Champions League, we're traveling week in, week out, the same number of miles that the Champions League.
Yeah, I want to actually bring in one of our regular commenters, Chris, who's saying
MK
to you,
Ultra.
wonder how you feels about being pretty isolated. There's Boise, there's Spokane, but outside of that, there's Alta, which is way down south in Southern California, and then Omaha and Madison. You do have a massive sort of geographical range here. Is that obviously that's travel costs, but even beyond that, I think what Chris is asking is like, does that cause a problem for the club that you're just sort of not geographically connecting with teams to create little mini rivalries and things?
Yeah, it's an issue, and it's one that the league is facing head on. They're really focusing on westward expansion. I can't say to the first part of the question. I'm sure Spokane is thrilled that us and Boise are coming in.
Yeah,
because they were absolutely on an island. But I think also we have to just be realistic. You can't just force a team to pop up somewhere. And if you take away the map of the teams and you just look at the map of the population centers in this country, it matches up pretty well. I mean, yes, there are population areas out west that could probably deal with a team that'd be good for that westward expansion. However, the reality is, the predominant population in our country are in the east, in the southeast, the northeast. So that's just sort of reality. But I think it allows us to be a little bit more regional in our representation. Like our name, we're Sporting Cascades, and so we're trying to represent a little bit larger area to bring in that commensurate population.
Yeah, that's interesting. That obviously that marketing part of it. I guess maybe just to expand on what Chris is asking about, and some things we have already touched on with various guests on the show. Is there a sense that there is a future in which, maybe you do want to occasionally make a trip all the way to the East Coast and have a game against them or have them come out? But is there a future in which something like the USL League One or the divisions there with Pro Rel coming are more regionally focused, like almost like you're playing 20, 25 games within your region rather than kind of having to go to Omaha, but also having to go to South Georgia and also having to go to Greenville and those kind of things?
100%. I think that's the writing's on the wall there. For us to survive long term, we're going to have to split this up regionally. And I really do hope, as a fan of the game, I hope that we're not playing the same teams 3-4 times a season. But those cross country trips, maybe we'll go to Portland one year, they come to us the next year, and it's just the one-offs against teams across the country. I think that has to be the future.
Yeah, the Jägermeister Cup might also add some variety into the mix of some of your opponents there too. So we've covered kind of the colors, the badge, kind of the origins of it. One other point from the brand reveal that I wanted to ask about, because we did have some comments on this. Why the name Sporting?
Well, first of all, I'd like to take on the Cascades part, because there's some questions there, and I think the issue that we're facing is much like every team in Minneapolis is Minnesota, because they don't want to be alienating to St. Paul, of course, right? We have the same issue. Springfield is right across the bridge. It's not an insignificant part of our metro area. And I know they're tired of not getting recognized, on some level, everything always being Eugene. And that was something that we definitely heard in our listening session. But what do we do with that? We can't be Oregon for a bunch of obvious reasons. So where are we left? And so that's sort of where that came in. And literally it was a lot of our listening groups, Cascades came up, or some version of Cascades came up as a potential geographic identifier. The Sporting piece of course, it is used by a few clubs. It doesn't have, I think it's not used by many, so it doesn't have as much of that, well, this means that in this sport. I mean, certainly it can mean that you're a sporting club, you are multiple sports. And, Jason, to your point, Sporting KC, they use it. They said they were going to have other sports and they never did. We may, I'm not making any promises, but
Okay, good.
we may. But that's not why we chose it. I think what we're really leaning into is the things that we heard from our fans around the community is being outside in doing stuff outside is so much part of our culture that if you want to say, being a sportsman or whatever is fishing or hunting or whatever, we feel like it kind of covers that. If you're an avid skier and you're out there, that's sporting. That's just part of our culture here. And it's ingrained from the beginning. You go on a hike, everyone hikes here all the time. Like, oh, weekend, let's just go for a hike, whatever. And everyone's carrying a baby around. You go skiing, there's a little newborn in a backpack on someone's, like, everyone is part of being outside. And that's sort of the part of the community that we were trying to reflect. I'll leave it up to others to say whether we hit that or not. And I think it's also an evolving piece of the brand, right? I mean, people will lean into parts and lean away from other parts, and we'll just see how it evolves. But that's where we're propping that up.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that and kind of a look behind the curtain of the new brand and club look for Sporting Cascades. Before you go, I want to say thank you for kind of revealing the budgeting difference between the USL 2 level up to pro, because we understand that's a big jump, but seeing it written down there and hearing it come out of your mouth, like, that's not an insignificant jump. That's apples to oranges as far as budgeting. Can you remind the listeners though of what that like the kit reveal and that next announcement is from Sporting Cascades? Yeah,
we're going to be announcing that on other channels, not just yours, but you're the first. September 23rd, we're going to announce our apparel partner. We have a big event. It's going to be exclusive, sign up, limited space, free merch, exclusive looks at the merch that will go online the next day.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. We did have some people, and I don't want to put you on the spot to respond to this, but we had some people say, "Hey, look, that brown that's in the badge, there aren't a lot. That brown is a tough color to own, but if you own it, it can be really cool." I mean, we got the Padres in baseball, and I think St. Pauli came up for me over there in Germany, which is a club that makes that work for them. Just saying, Dave. Just saying.
It's not lost on us.
All right.
Lost on us.
There you go. Shout out. Thank you.
Well, Dave Galas, co-founder, Sporting Cascades, putting Eugene, Oregon onto our Get to Know Your District map for Eugene, Oregon. Thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Kick Around, sir.
Robert, Jason, thank you so much for having me.
All right. If you enjoyed that interview, we've done many more like that too, trying to get to know our districts across America. There are a lot of different cities doing great things, and there's also a lot of nuanced places that we're going to get to learn here too.
Yeah, let's also just because that's a really good conversation with Dave, and he gave us some really good information to go on. Too many burgundies in here. Expenses may go dramatically, but revenue should also go up significantly. Obviously, you got to spend money to make money. If you're spending $5 million, it doesn't mean that you're spending $5 million and not making anything. Clearly, you're going to be selling tickets and hopefully merch and all that stuff. And, without looking at the balance sheets, yeah, of course. But that's the thing, like getting that stuff to equal out is obviously the big lift in American soccer. And we're excited to see Sporting Cascades take on the challenge, Rob.
Yes, sir. So we have one more segment here for the week. So let's take a breath and come right back with today's hot topic, talking NWSL cap here on Morning Kick Around. It's not just your favorite store at the mall. It is Morning Kick Around's hot topic, and one of world soccer's biggest names, and certainly one of the biggest names in the NWSL, departed for Chelsea this week.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that in large part it came down to the National Women's Soccer League's cap space, and she might have outgrown that a little bit, it seems.
Yeah, so Alyssa Thompson, talented 20-year-old player, for LAFC is now joining Chelsea. And what has struck people most about this move is that it seems as though Angel City is selling her very cheaply, that this is not the kind of money that it should take to grab one of the top attacking talents who is, again, 20 years old.
Ooh.
The fees being reported are £1 million. So that's roughly $1.3, $1.4 million, depending on the day and the transfer or the exchange rate, rather. There could be potential add-ons. Angel City called this one of the highest transactions in global women's soccer. But again, you look at some of the other moves that have happened recently. Naomi Girma broke the $1 million mark, and we've had several moves since then. Olivia Smith, Arsenal signed her for £1 million, so the same amount for as for Alyssa Thompson. Lisbeth Ovaide has joined the Orlando Pride for $1.5 million, which is £1.1 million, and I believe we have had that record broken in the last couple days as London City, which has just gotten promoted to the WSL in England, has spent a bunch of money as well. So that's
Super
the
League,
first
you
thing.
mean, right?
So WSL, that's what I said. Women's Super League. Yeah.
Yeah.
WSL. That's what that is, right? Am I wrong about the?
No, I thought you said NWSL. Forgive me.
No, WSL.
Gotcha.
So I think that is the first thing that strikes people. Like, why are they selling her for that amount of money? She should be worth way more than that. But then you kind of dig into this, and what you've got here is a disconnect between what NWSL wants to be in women's soccer globally and the rules it has in place to restrict its clubs on spending. Now, if you just kind of in a vacuum go, what should the NWSL do with player spending? It kind of makes sense, right? First of all, it's a very American thing to have salary budgets or salary caps that promote parity, right? We do parity in American sports. We don't want any club to be dominant and win championship after championship. We want everybody to have a chance. It's just what we do, right? Even baseball has the luxury tax, which is meant to help spread the wealth. So that, from that perspective, you can understand why NWSL is going in that direction. Also, it's just, it's obviously a financial guard against insolvency or against clubs spending too much money or against the league being in trouble financially in a sport that is traditionally tough to sell in America, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I get it. But if NWSL, unlike Major League Soccer, is going to be one of the best leagues in the world, if not the best league in the world, if that is something they covet, the idea of being the best women's league in the world, you just can't have salary caps like this. You just cannot restrict clubs from spending the money that it would take to keep the best players in the world here. Because if there are no restrictions on Chelsea or no restrictions on any of the Super League clubs or Lyon in France or Barcelona or whoever, then those clubs can just go, whatever, we'll just get your player, because you literally cannot spend more to keep her. It's not that I don't know if Angel City wants to spend more on Alyssa Thompson, who signed a new contract not that long ago. It's just that they cannot. The salary cap for this year in NWSL is $3.3 million. Is that right, Rob? Is that the number we
3.3 up from 2.75 last year.
Yes. So that is not nothing, but when you're trying to spread it out across 26 players, and by the way, if you want a very good sort of inside baseball primer on this, check out the recap podcast with Kristen Press and Tobin Heath, and they kind of dive into this, right? They go deep in on why the salary cap is a problem for the NWSL. Now, if you're just talking about from a player's perspective, Rob, you could understand why they would be like, just spend whatever you want, because that's better for players. But there really is an argument here beyond that for the greater good of NWSL, that these rules, as per the Alyssa Thompson transfer, are a problem for the league to maintain its status as the best women's soccer league in the world.
Yeah, the money is only getting bigger in the WSL over in the UK, and teams are spending big. And yeah, Naomi Girma, first $1 million player, but yeah, like you said, been broken on multiple occasions since then. So they are not going away, and the spending from across the Atlantic is not going away. So with this cap, is NWSL going to lose its spot on the top perch? It's been kind of neck and neck for a few years here, but maybe the tide is turning. Certainly one of the NWSL's biggest stars.
It's not even like, okay, so you could still argue the NWSL, even as if it loses some of its top talent to bigger spenders in England or in Europe, that the league can kind of maintain its predominance as the best women's league because there's talent spread out across NWSL, and the competitive nature of the league is such that like Barcelona might be a better individual team than anybody in NWSL, although it's hard to know. The Chelsea or any of those women's Super League teams could be among the best in the world. Lyon, obviously, because they spend money on the women's side, but the strength of the league across the board is better. But it's still not good for your product, particularly when a young American player ends up going to an English club on the cheap. And part of the reason is that her salary that she can command in that environment is basically your entire salary cap or something close to that, right? It would eat up 60% of your salary cap in NWSL. And now they've gone to allocation money rules. They're following MLS's lead on that front. And again, that would be fine if the NWSL was like Major League Soccer in the sense that it operated in a second or third tier of soccer leagues and kind of understood its place and just knew they were willing to make that bargain of we can't spend that much money, but that's okay because we're not really trying to compete with the Premier League. But if you are trying to compete with the best, then this is where the problem is. And, that kind of freak out over this, I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out while the NWSL has, generally speaking, been going from strength to strength, but also has the thing hanging around their commissioner and the heat issues in Kansas City and things like that.
Yeah, for context, Alyssa Thompson scored 15 goals in 69 appearances for Angel City and joins Chelsea, who's an absolute boat, who have won 6 straight WSL championships, including 9 of the last 11 years. So Alyssa Thompson joining a dynasty in the WSL. See how she fits in there. Lots of talented players. We'll see and I'm curious if that league, it sounds like it already is, WSL becoming, they're the Yankees, the Man City of the WSL right now. So I'm interested to see how she fits into that team and how that might affect. I think on that, you talked about the recap with Kristen Press. That's a great show. I've enjoyed their commentary on more than one occasion. I'm curious if this is really going to be out. They've talked about in the past how going overseas could impact your national team status, but with that kind of paradigm possibly changing with the spending, is this, and then probably the coach for the national team probably has a little bit more grace as far as like players leaving the American bubble, but interesting to see if that impacts her national team status in any way.
You have a direct connection between Emma Hayes and Chelsea Football Club. She coached at Chelsea. Obviously, being an English woman, she's not going to have any problem with these players going to England more than likely. Remember that once upon a time, the U.S. women's national team CBA dictated that players play in the NWSL. Now, that is very similar to like asking those players in the original MLS years to come back from Europe to help the league grow. Like, we need American stars. John Harkes, can you come back? Eric Ronaldo, can you come back? Alexi Lalas, can you come back? That was sort of that vibe, but that's no longer a thing. U.S. women's national team players do not have to be playing in NWSL per some contract with U.S. Soccer to be U.S. women's national team players. And U.S. Soccer, right, Andy is saying this was part of the deal. NWSL wasn't paying those players' wages. U.S. Soccer was subsidizing their wages to keep them in American soccer because the league wasn't in a position to pay them what they were worth. And now that's no longer the case. And if the NWSL wants to crow about its growth, if they want to say, look at us, look at all this excitement, and Bay FC fills up a baseball stadium, and then they can't then cry poor when their players are like, well, look, Chelsea wants me, and they're willing to pay me way more than Angel City. You can't have it both ways if you're in WSL.
Certainly can't, and we will keep an eye as that story progresses. Before we go for the day, gotta let you guys know we are going to be live on location next week in New Mexico for Meow Wolf Night, the first ever on location episode of Morning Kick Around. We couldn't be happier to present one of the most unique combinations of art, culture, and sports. Meow Wolf, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Come say hi if you're in the area, want to meet and talk and make as many connections out there as possible.
Yes, absolutely. We've already had some people reach out and say, I'm going to be there. Can't wait to see you guys. I think we had a Tulsa fan say, I'm traveling for the game. Maybe I'll catch up with you guys.
Nice.
That's great. I also want to shout out our man, Nicholas Murray, who is in our chat today, who included us in Morning Kick Around in our trip in the Rondo. his USL newsletter that everybody should be subscribed to. Go read the Rondo and pay attention to what's happening in USL. Learn about the USL through Nicholas Murray and his newsletter. So that is the thing. And also, look, this is going to be a proof of concept. I put it in my own newsletter, which is way shorter than the Rondo, not nearly as in-depth, but still kind of interesting. Jason Davis, Soccer Eagle, that this is a proof of concept for us. If this works, what else can we do? Where else can we go? Can we pop up in Portland, Maine? Can we pop up in Chattanooga? Can we pop up in some of these places where soccer is growing, but it is not getting the same kind of attention as, say, Inter Miami in Seattle playing a game in front of 70,000?
Yep. Thank you so much to our guest today, Dave Galas from Sporting Cascades. Thank you so much for joining us. We got some great guests lined up for next week. We're going to talk about World Cup tickets going on sale next week, amongst many other stories. So excited for next week. And obviously we round out the week. We will be on Friday from Mountain Time. So it'll be 9:30 to 10:30 next Friday on Mountain Time. So still doing our Monday, Wednesday, Friday next week.
Just subscribe to the channel and then you'll get notified when stuff is happening. It's that easy. It's that easy.
Yes. Thank you to our members. Thank you to our Ko-Fi contributors. Thank you to the subscribers. And thank you for everyone for tuning into this show. Let everyone know that Morning Kick Around is a show you enjoy. If that is a true statement, and spread the word. Let everyone know about Morning Kick Around as we endeavor to become part of the American soccer conversation, a town square of ball in the United States. So until Monday, everybody, please enjoy your soccer.